Hello, everybody. Greetings, book lovers everywhere, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm your host, Ethan Minton. I'm a literacy advocate, a podcast host, and the founder and CEO of the 501c3 nonprofit, E-Train Talks Inc., which is dedicated to inspiring a love of reading and ensuring every child has access to books. Today's episode is extra special, not just because it's National Hispanic Heritage Month, but also I have the incredible honor of speaking with one of the most inspiring voices in children's literature, the legendary Meg Medina. Meg Medina is the Newbery Medal winning author of the book I have right here, MERCI SUÁREZ CHANGES GEARS, along with many other heartfelt, powerful, and unforgettable books. Her stories explore identity, family, culture, and growing up in ways that truly stay with you. Her newest middle grade fantasy book is Graciela in the Abyss. It takes readers on an incredible underwater adventure. It's a somewhat short read with powerful reading impact. And I'm just really excited to learn Meg's story behind the story. And for those who don't know, almost wrapping this introduction up, Meg Medina is a strong advocate for reading and served as the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature from 2023 to 2024. And she encouraged kids all across the country to discover the power of their own voices through reading and storytelling. So now, long intro, but we're getting right into it. Meg Medina, welcome to E-Train Talks.
Woo! Thank you, Ethan. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, I'm excited that you're here. It's an honor to have you here. And whenever you're ready, let's jump into the first question. All right. So first off, congratulations on your newest book being published, Graciela in the Abyss.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away, can you tell us a little bit about your newest middle grade story?
Yeah. So this is Graciela in the Abyss is a fantasy novel, which is new for me. I don't usually write fantasy. It takes place in the abyss, which is the deepest part of the ocean, the part where sunlight no longer reaches, and the part of the ocean that we know the least about.
Mm.
Basically, everyone is dead in the story. There are a few living characters, but we are moving into the world of sea ghosts. The main sea ghost is Graciela, a girl who died on her 13th birthday in a ridiculous fall from a cliff. And she now joins the spirit world. After her 100-year sleep, she awakens and joins the spirit world, where she will spend an integrating into the sea. But while that's happening, she has a job like every other spirit. There are some who make sea glass. There are some spirits who make waves. There are all kinds of jobs in the sea. There's a living boy on land. His name is Jorge Leon. He is the son of blacksmiths, a long line of blacksmiths who have the horrible distinction of having created the one harpoon in the world that could damage and kill a sea ghost spirit for good. And in the course of the story, these two characters have to join forces against their will almost to save the sea and the balance of the world really from really sort of dark impulses. Yeah, so that's it. A very cheery story for children by Meg Medina.
That's the perfect description for it.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was a little weird when I was writing it because it does deal, like it opens with Graciela falling to her death. And it deals a lot with dying and regrets and, evil impulses and things. And, when you're a writer for children, you have to ask yourself, like, what am I doing? Is this the right story for kids? That kind of thing. And how do we talk about these things with kids who are 10 to 14 in a way that makes sense to them? Yeah.
Definitely. That's a big question that we'll actually be getting into later. This topic of grief and death in middle grade. And while getting ready for our talk, I learned that Cuban mythology includes a lot of sea spirits and ocean stories. I think that's really interesting. I love mythology, all kinds of it. And were there any parts of Graciela in the Abyss that were inspired by these ancient myths and folktales? And do you personally believe that there are sea spirits or something spiritual or mystical in the deep ocean, like demonstrated in your book?
Oh my goodness, all those good questions. All right, so Cuba, of course, is an island, so there's no in the Caribbean, which makes perfect sense that there would be a lot of sea lore and mythologies and so on associated with the island. Um, For me specifically, I would say I did not draw on those influences other than the ones that are just sort of naturally part of my life, having grown up as a Cuban girl, right? Hearing
Right.
stories and so on. But I didn't actively search out that kind of mythology. What I did do was give long, hard thought to the ocean and my relationship to the ocean, how much I love it and how scary it can be in different conditions. And then the fascination with all that we don't know
Mm.
about this enormous body that is here on Earth. Like we spend so much time thinking about Mars and space exploration and so on, but this thing that is everywhere around us, we know so, so little. And so it was in that space of like the incredible things we know about the ocean, that there are waterfalls down there, that the largest mountain range is down there, that there are species that look like space aliens. Every time we go down, we find new species down there. Um, the rifts, the trenches, the proximity to the core of the earth, like bubbling and gurgling, like all we know that is fascinating and then all we don't know. And then in that space, that's where I wrote the story.
Mhm.
And as for my own sort of spiritual thinking, that's such a journey, and I think I've never, and it started about when I was your age. Certainly in high school, I was thinking about it like, what's true? What do I believe?
Right.
What spiritually, religiously, those kinds of things. As an adult right now, and I've had lots of different answers at different points in my life. Right now, I don't follow any organized religion, and yet I do feel a spiritual connection to the world, that there are things larger than
Mhm.
what we can manage with our brains and hands, that there are other forces that we don't understand. But that's as clear as I have gotten, which is not very clear. But I took that doubt into the book as well because I think, I don't know, do you wrestle with those kinds of questions?
Definitely. I feel like those are questions that many kids grapple with. What's real? What's not? What should I believe? What should I not believe?
Right,
Especially in high school, like when we're really thinking about ourselves and discovering who we are as people. It's these are
right,
big questions that are being asked.
right. And how do I define what's right? What's
Mhm.
wrong? What is a worthwhile, what is a way of being that's worthwhile? What's detrimental? What hurts the world? What helps the world? Like all things like that. I was always that. I don't know that I was saying it in those same ways when I was in high school and college and so on, but certainly I was never settled. I was never I always had another question to ask the adults who were giving me answers, so to speak. There were some of them were spoken, some were unspoken, but I just stayed a lot in the place of wonder about our place in the big, big universe.
Mhm. In the acknowledgments of Graciela in the Abyss, you mentioned that the journey of the book actually started back in 2010. That's the year I was born. That was a long time ago. So
Oh, stab me in the heart, Ethan. Go ahead. Yes.
What was it like to work on a story off and on for that long? What helped you stick with it? And when did you know that you were going to finish it? When were you gonna hunker down and say, "I'm writing this book"?
Yeah, I'll tell you why it was murder. That's what I'm going to tell you. So writing can be such a hard endeavor, right? Because, when you're telling a story or when you're trying to frame a story, sometimes you really don't know why you want to tell it or what's going to happen. Like it's all just sort of murky. Um, and you have a lot of false starts. I don't know, and ask any kid in any writing class, right? You write some things and then you get to that place where I got nothing, right? I have nothing else to say. I don't know. This character went into a dead end. I don't know how to fix it. So in 2010, I had just finished publishing my first novel, which is no longer in print. It was called Milagros, Girl from Away. And um, you know, I was now on my sophomore novel, and that was just a panic. Like, what am I going to write? So I knew it was going to be a story about two friends. I knew that I wanted it to be in the ocean. I wanted this story to be about friends. And I had these two ghost girls in mind, and they had like a set of pearl teeth. And every year, another layer of pearl uh, adheres there. And so when you're a very old spirit, you has this bumpy, pearly mouth. And so those pearls are very valuable, and I wanted something to be hunting them for
Mhm.
those pearls. And those pearls in some way stand for time, right? Because they grow in time. And the other thing that grows in time is wisdom.
True.
And so there was something there. And so I started writing it. Now, I have in my computer a file called the graveyard. And I put all of the stuff that I start that fails, right, in some way, one way or another. It just gets dumped there because I don't have the heart to have spent hours writing something that got me nowhere, right? So I just pretend it's just moving over into the
Yeah.
graveyard. So in 2010, I had a file. In 2011, and so I wrote it from the girl's point of view. Then this character Jorge came. I wrote it from the boy's point of view. I kept writing and writing and writing and failing. I wrote the first 50 pages over, I don't even know how many times.
Wow.
So then what happened, though, Ethan, and I won't belabor it because it's just such a sad time to think about. My mom died in 2013. She came to live with me. She came with her sister, my aunt, who was also very ill. And so my mom died in 2013, and I didn't have time to grieve her because I had to take care of my aunt at the time and my mother-in-law, right? Long story, but I had all of these old, very ill people living with me at the time. And that's just busy, right? That's just busy attending to someone's life. And my own kids were about your age. They were in high school. And sometimes high school age and very old, ill people, it's not an easy mixing in a home. And so there was just a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
So fast forward to 2020 and we hit COVID.
Right.
And my aunt was, by then we had transitioned her to a nursing home, and she died in a nursing home during COVID
Mm.
in really the worst possible set of circumstances. And there was just so much fear at that time and so much disconnection for our whole country. Like, you suddenly couldn't see your friends, you couldn't go to school, you couldn't do the simple, ordinary things, go to a grocery store, have a cup of coffee. Like, everything was about isolation and loss and fear of death. And accompanying that was also the rancor of how we were talking with each other as people, which argue now is even worse, right? It's just the conflicts and the separations that we feel and the divisions that we feel from other people right now. And all of that started to cook, and I went back to these two girls who had died and what it feels like to have regrets around death and what happens to us afterward. And I just was able to imagine the story then, and it took shape. But it killed me. And my editor, Kate, I've done all my books with her, almost all my books with her. And um, she was really, really patient. And we did a lot of back and forths, which is not usual for me with editing. Usually I write a draft and maybe twice, three times, I'll go back and forth with the editor where she'll say, fix this, change this. So when I'm sending a copy to the editor, usually, this is a flex here, I am in pretty solid shape, but I wasn't solid here. I was a mess, right? Because it was all these messy feelings about my mom and my aunt and the country and blah, all of it. And so it took a lot of back and forths, but she'd ask me really weird questions like, what clothes do spirits wear? How are they moving that bottle if their hands are sort of slippery jellyfish things? Like all of the things that you have to get right when you're writing fantasy and you're creating a world. And then when I finished that draft, then I could step back and ask myself, here, what's this book about? That kind of thing. It was really a messy, tangled process this time.
That was a great answer.
Ah, long.
Long journey, somewhat long answer, so it fits.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
So when this interview comes out, it will be Banned Books Week, a time when the book world comes together to use our collective voices to educate and stand up together against censorship. And on this note, I want to bring up your book, first cuss word going to be said on E-Train Talks ever. Yaki Delgado wants to kick your ass. Well, don't
Yeah.
ban me, guys.
Yes.
So your book has faced challenges and even a canceled school visit because of its title. As
Yeah.
someone who writes diverse stories for kids, and over time, the social norms of what schools are looking for and what schools can allow in classrooms have changed. So, what do you think we can do to push back against censorship and ensure that important stories like Yaki Delgado wants to kick your ass? I just wanted to say it again. Um, what can we
I
do to push back against book bans and make sure young readers still have books that help them feel seen and heard?
Yeah. So, wow, what a huge issue we're facing right now.
Yeah.
So, my personal belief is that I'm a huge supporter of kids' right to read. I think kids, and when I say kids, I mean the whole range, right, all the way through high school. Certainly, there are books that are appropriate in kindergarten and third grade versus high school and things like that. So there's has to be responsible shelving of these books and so on. Sure. But I believe that kids read and seek out books for information, for entertainment, um, and I think it's wrong to create obstacles between them and the topics and the things that they want to read about. I think a much stronger position to be in is to be in conversation with kids about what they're reading, whether you like it or not, right? Whether you agree with that. Like your position can be, I don't like the book because of X, Y, or Z. And your kid's position could be, yeah, but it makes good points about ABC.
Right.
That conversation creates relationship, right? It creates understanding. It doesn't have to create agreement, but it can create understanding and respect. And ultimately, I think that's what you're after from the adult child kind of point of view. So, what I think kids should do is not assume that they have to accept bans. And there are all kinds of bans. There are, like in Florida, for example, that Yaqui Delgado has been taken off shelves. Like there are counties in Florida where you can't even access the book in the library. And they'll say, that's not a ban. You could go to the public library and get it or whatever. And that is a ban because a lot of times kids go to their school library for their book. So I feel like kids need to keep their ear to the ground in terms of what's happening in your county and in your school board. When these issues come up, you need to show up at that school board meeting and say why that book matters or why it matters in principle to have that book available. Having the book available doesn't mean everybody has to read it. It means that it's available for those who want to read it. And that's really important. The danger is that if we give up our right for we're giving other people the right to decide what stories matter, what opinions matter, what what view of the world we're supposed to have. And that's the job of young people. You're making that. You are figuring that out. And one way that you figure it out is by learning a lot about a lot of people and a lot of points of view. and then being able to chart your own course. So I just think you have to push back on it and be vocal on it. And that's so hard because we feel powerless sometimes, especially when we're young and adults in power um, seem to be calling the shots. But your vocal representation, your interest in your own education and in your own rights is speaks volumes. And I think is it also helps the adults who are fighting for you. It strengthens them to do that work on your behalf as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think every day is banned books day. Like
Definitely.
we can't ever back away from that. And you'd just be shocked at the silly things that, I mean, all kinds of things are banned, and often it's the result of like a very small group of parents organizing. Well organized. One or two parents can bring a complaint, and then suddenly the whole school has no access to that book. And so all of those issues, I think you have to keep in mind.
Definitely. And I love your
What are
story.
you doing for Banned Book Week? Do you have plans?
I'm going to be running Instagram lives with different authors talking about the importance of like standing against censorship and specifically people who've had their books banned. I'm going to be talking to some
Uh,
authors.
it's
Also,
so painful.
yeah, also just reading banned books is another thing I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
Trying to get my hands on some more. Thankfully, in California, I believe there's a law against banning books.
Yeah.
So I
You guys are way ahead of the game. My plan for Banned Books Week, I'm going to write letters to there are a couple of school districts very near my county that have pulled books, including books by some of my dear friends who I know to be incredibly lovely people
Mhm.
who just are just great advocates for children. I cannot believe their work has been banned. So writing to them and reminding them that I disagree with the decision that they made. Um, that's how I mean, I think all things that we can do, large and small, are important, especially the reading of banned books. So that's a great idea.
Thank you. Now, let's move on to another of your stories that I have that actually won the Newbery Medal. Merci Suarez Changes Gears.
Yay.
The book follows Merci, a middle schooler trying to find her place at a private school where most kids live life very differently from her. She's navigating her Cuban heritage, her family's lifestyle, and just the pressure to fit in with her school peers. I really connected with her story because I also go to private school on a scholarship, and I've also experienced teasing and actually as a Jewish student anti-Semitism. So
Mm.
was Mercy's story inspired by your own life or by someone that you know? And what made you want to tell her story?
Well, I'm a public school kid. I was a public school kid all the way through college. I went to PS 22, junior high school 189, Seekonk High School, Queens College, all public school, mostly because of affordability. But yeah, this I I was interested in telling Mercy's story. Her voice just came very clearly to me. She's very smart and snarky, but she's also at that place where we're moving from 5th to 6th grade where everything changes. You don't have one teacher, you have 6 teachers, you have lockers. Suddenly people are making love eyes at each other, and some people think that's gross and some people are just all in. Um, all of the changes, and then, the economic realities of being in a space where you have considerably less than a lot of people around you. And that doesn't seem like if you're the person with a lot of money, you're like, well, what's the big deal? Nobody's making a big deal. Except for the person in on the other side of that, there are lots of things that are taken for granted that you can't access, right? Or ways of being or social groups that are just feel really unfamiliar. Um, so that's Mercy's situation. She's very bright. Her brother Rolly is really bright. He's one of the science geniuses in the upper school. Um, and she notices the difference, the different places where she doesn't exactly fit in. But mostly this is a story about relationships, right?
Right.
her relationships to friends, her relationship to her family, her relationship to her grandfather. And I was really interested in change and all the changes that happen across all the different points of our life, right? Certainly the growing up change, moving from a kid into your teen years, but also like changes that happen in families. Divorce changes families, economics changes families, disease, illness, death, all of those things change families, and kids are part of those changes. They're witness to them, and they have to process them with whatever tools they have at the age that those things happen. So, I wanted to create that, but I wanted her to be funny. And I wanted to just explore the bananas world of middle school because let's face it, right? It's just crazy land. And so it just became a really fun sort of soup. I knew a lot of people like Medici. My Cuban family was very Badinsky. My grandmother, one of them was a seamstress. The other one was like worried about every last thing, every way I could potentially die, and always shared those ideas freely. I was going to die choking on a bean, being dragged to my death by a city bus, any number of things. And so I sort of merged them together into one grandmother. Um, I'm a dangerous person to be related to, I think, because I watch people really well. I remember their qualities, like their essential qualities, and then I play around with them and I give them to my characters. I wanted to show you something. I won the Newbery for that medal, for that book, as you know, and I brought the medal so you could see it. Most kids see this medal as like that little sticker on a book,
Right.
but it is actually a medal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, here it is for size purposes. And on the front, it says, for the most distinguished contribution to American literature. And then it says Meg Medina 2019. And
That's
on the back
amazing.
of the medal is a sort of sculptural representation of John D. Newbery. So I got that one. But the other medal that I have, the other Newbery medal, is this one. It was made
Aw.
for me by the author C.C. Bell, who wrote El Deafo. I don't know if you know that book. It's
I
a
do, yeah.
graphic novel. Yeah. So on the night of the Newbery Awards, C.C. came through the line, and she made this medal for me, the
That's so
C.C.
sweet.
Newbery. And I have had this all this year. It hangs here in my office. And what I love about this, medals are very nice. They get you lots of attention and they give you prestige and all of those things. The official medal is really nice because it's the official acknowledgement from the children's literature community, and what an
Right.
honor. But to receive a medal from a friend, a fellow book creator, something that she made herself for me with great love and um, generosity and joy, that also felt like the spirit of the children's literature community. And so both of those things I'm really happy with as a result. And also it's just been fun because like when you win the Newbery, it also means your book will never go out of print. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. Yeah.
The Newbery books stay in print forever. So my great grandchildren will be able to read Merci Suarez, and even if I don't, I won't meet them, but they can meet me through my books, and that feels kind of cool. Yeah.
That is really cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. Neither did I until I won, and then I said, "Really? Fabulous." So, yeah.
So, on this topic of recognition, I mean, there are so many topics that I could bring up about our talk. So many topics, like you're a very interesting person. And one thing I definitely want to ask about before our time for this interview is up is about your role as the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature. Could you
Yeah.
share how this honor came about, what the role actually entails, and what the experience is like for you?
Yeah, so the National Ambassador for Young initiative that is done by the Library of Congress, the big head honcho library in Washington, D.C., and every child together they sponsored this. Have been, uh, I think we're on the ninth. Mac Barnett is the current ambassador, but the first one was John Cheska. Remember the stinky cheese man? And since then we've had like Kate DiCamillo and Catherine Patterson and Walter Dean Myers and Jean Yang. I mean, all the really big names. So it is a really huge honor. It's selected by the Librarian of Congress. There's a committee that suggests names, but ultimately the librarian picks the person who they feel that can go out into the country for 2 years and inspire kids to read and talk to them about their book lives and so on. So I was the person for 23 and 24, and that was super, super thrilling. The first thing you have to do is sort of design a platform, and mine was called Cuéntame, Let's Talk Books. So cuéntame, we say like Latinos say cuéntame, like so tell me, right? It's a very like welcoming sort of phrase. And I wanted to make sure that my platform was bilingual and that invited kids who speak only English or kids who speak Spanish and English. So tell me. And what I wanted them to tell me was about their reading life. So I went to schools and we did a lot of book talks. I'd go to schools and I would book talk 3 books. And a book talk for me is 1 minute or less book commercial from me to you. Like a little bit about why this book is great, what I think you're going to love about it, like, but it has to be entertaining and snappy and interesting. No book reports, no vocabulary lists, no long copy on anything. Fast, quick, entertaining. And then the kids would be on stage with me and they'd book talk books that they thought I should read. And I did. As I went around the country, I was reading what they were recommending. And the other part of the time was just like being in conversation with them about their reading lives. And they told me all kinds of things. Like, they would tell me, if they thought reading was too hard, what was boring about how reading is being taught to them or handled with them. What they wish could change about their reading lives, like all kinds of stuff like that. So I did that. I had office hours at the Library of Congress. I had an office at the very top in the little dome. They call it the attic. So I had this beautiful office overlooking the Capitol, and kids would come once a month with their families, every other month, I'm sorry, with their families, and talk to me for the day. And the last thing I did was a video series. It's called Cuéntame, Let's Talk Books video series. It's on the Library of Congress's page. You can look that up. And I interviewed 18 children's and YA authors. The videos are quick. They're like 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. So a teacher or a kid could just like click on them and find out about Jarek Krasaska or Lamar Giles or Sabaa Tahir or L&O, like really quickly. And sometimes we talked about who they were as kids, their favorite books, a memory they had. Like it was all over the map. But it was fun. It was fun. So, that I did because I think screen time is a fact of people's lives, as evidenced by what we're doing here right now. So it doesn't have to compete with your reading life. It could be part of your reading life. And I wanted to meet people in person at the office, and I wanted people to come into the Library of Congress. Have you ever visited by any chance?
I've been once. It was when I was 6, I believe, so I don't remember it too well.
So beautiful. Come back. It's so fun. And now, up until recently, I don't know this exact second, but the library has like concerts and, at the holidays, it's incredibly decorated. It's just a really fun place to go. And, it was a magical 2 years. I was exhausted because I was on the road like constantly and in airplanes and airports and hotels and away from my family a lot. So it felt like when it was over, I was sad and also ready to see someone else. And I think Mac's platform is about picture books for everyone, how picture books really span all age groups. So yeah, that's been his spiel for the last year.
Well, I'm really happy that you had the opportunity to take on such an inspiring and important role. And I'm going to be heading back to DC this spring, so maybe I'll get to see the Library of Congress again.
Yes, you should absolutely go. You should absolutely go. You will have a good time.
I'm excited. And now it's time, sort of somberly, but also I'm excited to see your answer. It's time for the final question of the interview. The question I ask everyone that I interview. If you could be or meet any literary character, by that I mean you could be or meet your favorite author or a character in a book, who would it be and why?
Um, I would want to meet E.B. White, who wrote Charlotte's Web. I would want to meet him because that was the first book that really made me feel something very, very deeply um, about friendship. And he wrote about growing up and all the feelings that we have growing up so effortlessly, like inside these animals. I don't know. I think I would just want to spend time in the presence of somebody who knew kids so well instinctively, and just talk to him about this spider and that adorable pig Wilbur. I don't know. I think that's where I'd want to go, to where it all began as for reading for me.
That is a great answer. That is an amazing answer. And thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your weekend to talk with me. We've covered so much today, from your inspiring journey as the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature to the rich stories behind your books and just everything in between. I'm so grateful for you and the time we spent together.
Thank you, Ethan. I can't wait to see this go online, and I'll be clicking in and listening to all my colleagues out on here as well. Thanks for the time today, and
Yeah,
thanks everybody for listening.
thank you. And everybody, when you're watching, I hope you've enjoyed this talk. I hope that you continue reading, that you check out Meg Medina's books, and that you just stay safe. Maybe if it's raining outside where you are, or whatever the weather is, just maybe take a day inside, order Meg Medina's books, and just grab a cup of hot cocoa. It's probably too warm for that right now, but if shipping is pretty slow when it gets there in the winter, then you can do that. But yeah,
God
read.
help us.
Have a great day, everybody. Have a great day, Meg Medina. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.